Numinous Podcast with Carmen Spaniola.
Hi there, and welcome to the Numinous Podcast, where we have interesting conversations with everyday folks about the mystery of life. And every once in a while, I send you a brief missive, a little dispatch from here on the farm on Insilkshin-speaking territory, not too far away from a small town known as Summerland, BC. I'm your host, Carmen Spaniola. This dispatch is once again brought to you from the horse pasture, feeding horses in the morning. My husband Ruben is making progress on finishing my office. It's like a she shed, separate building, and it's going to be gorgeous, and it's my only space on this land that's like just mine. So I'm decorating, and I really wanted a small strip of William Morris wallpaper. William Morris was a wallpaper and textile designer in England in the mid to late 1800s. He had this design studio called Morris and Company. He had other designers who worked for him. So, not every single William Morris pattern that you see was made by him specifically. He had men and women craftspeople who worked with him. And he was also a writer. He was a very wonderful writer. And actually, the way I came to know him was when I first moved out, the day after I graduated high school when I was 17 years old. I bought myself a cute little journal that had a William Morris print on it. And it had a quote on the cover from William Morris that said, "Have nothing in your home that you don't know to be useful or believe to be beautiful." And those have been words I have lived by since I was 17. I have like an altar that's being built in, and I thought it would be really nice to just have that one strip as a backdrop to my altar, because it could be a long time before we actually get to renovate my in-laws' houses and make them livable. And in my plan for those houses, there's a sort of a hutch area, and I want to paper the inside of that with William Morris wallpaper. But as we are here longer and longer, I see much more clearly some of the difficulties there will be in moving forward with those renos. There's a lot of friction. And because we want to be here in a good way, we don't want to make my in-laws' golden years more difficult. My husband doesn't want to be arguing with them all the time. So we are, trying to take a really compassionate approach to the challenges they face with change. So I thought, I want to have this little bit of beauty in my office. And William Morris reminds me of the office I had when I still lived in Victoria, which was in a Victorian home that was really lovingly restored into really lovingly restored into offices by an architect. The architect firm was on the main floor, and there were a bunch of therapists in the upper floors. And as you walked up the stairs, all the door handles were original brass fittings that had patinaed over time, and the wallpaper was a William Morris style silk screened wallpaper. It's gorgeous. Maybe it was 2 or 3 colors, and it went up the entire stairwell. And I just always found it so lovely and textural and gorgeous. So I wanted a little bit of that. It's very, very expensive, as you can imagine, to find handmade wallpaper and, made in England. But there was a Canadian distributor who was selling samples, and the samples themselves are expensive. They're like $12 each for like an 8.5 by 11 swatch. But I thought, you know what? This is my little treat for me. So I ordered a bunch of these swatches. They arrived within 48 hours or so. And when I opened them, I could immediately see that these are digitally printed. These are not silkscreened wallpaper. And I don't know why I assumed that William Morris wallpaper would still be silkscreened in 2026. But that's the point of William Morris, is the layers upon layers of detail. Each layer of silk screening needing its own print process, and being able to see slight imperfections and misalignments and little tiny paint splatters of one color. And I just realized, like, wow, the children will never know the ancient texts. Like, the colors are bright, but everything was so perfect and one-dimensional. And I could not believe that they are still charging the amount of money that they do for digital print of these historic prints. And it made me think about the frictionless life. The enshitification of the internet is that they've made things so frictionless that now there's nothing even good. Remember when you would go on the internet and there'd be billions of weird little websites with people's special interests, and they would be lovingly filled with so much information. And now you go on the internet and you can't even get a good Google returns. Like the peak of the internet, I think, was somewhere around 2012 or 2014, which actually made me very proud of this podcast's branding, which is still from 2013. It launched in spring of 2014. And I think I'm just going to keep doing all the branding using my original designs because even that feels like a timestamp from a better era of the internet. If you haven't read Empire of AI by Karen Howe, I highly, highly recommend it, especially on audiobook. It's like 17 hours long, but imagine the most incredible investigative journalism from The Atlantic, listening to it and it lasting 17 hours. It was really, really enjoyable this winter as I would be doing horse chores. I'm going to talk later on about machine learning and the CEOs who are making these major decisions for all of us, and just how sociopathic it is. It's really, Anyway, I know everyone's tired. I'm tired. One of my favorite meme genres is the Ben Affleck is sick of life memes. And I think we're all Ben Affleck in a back alley, just praying for mercy and drowning his exhaustion and fatigue with life in a Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee. But it made me think of that contractor saying. You probably heard it. If you haven't, you should, because it's I think, a good life lesson. When you ask a contractor, a building person, how much something's going to cost, and he's setting up a budget for you, they'll often joke, well, you can have it fast, cheap, or good. Pick any two. You can have something fast and cheap, but it won't be any good. That's what our internet is right now. That's what so much of life is right now. Around here at Falder Farm, we want cheap and good. And so things don't get done very quickly. My office was supposed to be done coming up on a year ago this spring. But we don't have money. And so things get done inexpensively, and they get done well because my husband is doing them, by hand. And I'm going to be taking time to, I guess, go on eBay to see if I can find some vintage wallpaper end rolls and see if I can find the, 4 or 5 feet of William Morris wallpaper somewhere. Because I want the hand of the maker. I want the sense of time and dedication it made. And to be honest, when I think of William Morris, he's kind of one of the ancestors, I think of, the chosen family. If you haven't read The Spirited Kitchen or taken my courses, you might not know this one, but we all have ancestors that are bloodlines, milk lines, and storylines. So your bloodlines are obvious. It's who you're related to. Your milk lines are people who have coached you, who've seen you, who've supported you, who've helped shape your character. I have a number of them who have passed on, who were the parents of, friends and boyfriends when I was growing up. So they're my milk lines. There's coaches and English teachers that are my very dear ancestors, but not by blood. And then there's your storylines, the fictional characters, the myths, their stories and how they can inform your life and your actions. So when I think of William Morris, he's a milk line, I guess. I didn't know him personally. I don't think you have to know your milk lines personally. But he was not just a crafter of beauty. He was a socialist. He agitated more and more through his life for the rights of the worker, which is incredible because, he had a studio that was a design studio and production studio. He had workers. He was a worker. They made things. And it was important to him as the Industrial Revolution was getting in full swing and they were experiencing the enshitification of life, that people who labored were respected. People who made things with their hands, people who designed things with their minds and hearts deserved to be held in great esteem. And he became more and more politically active as a socialist and supporter of unions and things like that later in his career. So I want William Morris behind my altar. I want his work and his intention and his spirit to be in my sacred space. And my office is a sacred space. I consider my work quite sacred. I would like him there as a reminder of seeking friction in life, seeking friction with people. Ask me about living with my in-laws. I'm not trying to romanticize friction. A lot of us have way too much friction with systems or with people. But there's good friction too. There's the kind that makes us aware of our surroundings, that gives us situational awareness, that gives us relational attunement. And I think that's worth seeking. And I'm going to seek more of that in 2026, the year of analog.